Bertrand Russell's Unpopular Essays, Critical Appreciation, The Functions of a Teacher. Russell's educational philosophy is reflected in his high conception of the role and function of a teacher. In his view, dissemination of information is the least important of the functions of teachers. In addition, he must perform several positive tasks, for, in Russell's opinion, teachers are the guardians of civilization. Teaching was not an organized profession in antiquity. In the Middle Ages, teaching was the sole right of a clergyman. The Renaissance restored some measure of freedom to the teacher, though even then there were instances in Europe of church punishing people for the discoveries which did not suit it. Seats of higher learnings remained dominated by dogmatists. Therefore, most of the intellectual advance was done by people who were not connected to universities. In the world of today, education has become the prerogative of every citizen, and its imparting is stored by the state. The teaching profession has a long and honorable tradition, but the conception of functions of teacher has undergone a sharp change. For a teacher is no longer expected to teach what he thinks, but what is laid down by his employers. According to Russell, state-controlled education can turn man into unthinking fanatics, and for his own survival, the teacher must play the part which the state cuts off for him in this task. But as teaching requires intellectual freedom, that's why Russell describes vivid and clear conception about functions of a teacher. The most important function of a teacher is to inculcate in his pupils beliefs which are wise and sensible. It's unfortunate that over a large part of the globe, the teacher is forced to propagate dogmatic doctrinal beliefs which are approved by the state. This would only produce a desert of uniformity. The teacher's real function is not to become an agent of dogmatic approach, but a safeguard against it. Russell disagrees the wrong belief that uniformity of opinion and suppression of free discussion makes a state strong. He thinks it wrong that teachers should be made to defend totalitarian government. The rigors of party spirit are one of the chief intellectual dangers of our time. Rapid party spirits are the cause of mostly international and civil wars. But according to Russell, teachers must stand outside the strife of parties and produce in their students the habit of free and impartial inquiry. Moreover, the teacher must not flatter the prejudices of either the mob or the officials. Teachers are the guardians of civilization. Teacher must know what the essence of civilization is and strive to inculcate the civilized attitude in his students. Civilization is a thing of mind, not of material. Additions to the physical side of life. It comprises both knowledge and feelings. Thus, the civilized person must think of the present and its problems and its controversies in the perspective of the past and the future. Only a civilized teacher who is fully conscious of the vastness of geological epochs and astronomical abysses can possess a truly enlarged mind. A true teacher must not let education to be used merely as a means of propaganda Only a feeling of warm affection for his students would impel him to teach them what he himself believes to be true. The propagandist teacher thinks neither of his own beliefs nor of the welfare of his students, but only of the needs of his employers. He is like a gardener who does not let plants grow naturally but gives each one a shape which his employer has chosen for it. Thwarting the natural growth of a child not only results in destroying the strength but also in arousing cruelty and destructive urges. Many teachers are at present unable to do the best of which they are capable. There are a number of factors which are responsible for it. One of them is the fact that most teachers are overworked and are forced to prepare their pupils for examination rather than to give them a liberalizing mental training. Educational authorities are generally unaware of the fact that teaching demands a great expense of the spirit. There is a graver factor than overwork, and this is the fact that in many countries teachers are only required to propagate only the correct beliefs and keep silent about the other beliefs. This results in the fact that students have to strive outside the classroom to find out what is being taught on that particular subject elsewhere in the world. Russell believes that this breeds either cynicism or apathy in them in later life, when they find that things are quite different from what they were told. It is also one of the important functions of the teacher to open new stars before his pupils and tell them about activities which are both delightful and useful, so that their kind impulses are rightly channelized and the possibility of their missing joy in their own life and later trying to rob someone else of it is prevented. But according to Russell, there are certain constraints upon teachers. Say, for instance, many states are abnormally afraid of letting their citizens know the full truth on any matter, but it has its own dangers. According to Russell, the sudden shock of surprise and horror is more likely to produce cynicism in the pupils rather than concealing a certain knowledge. Moreover, it is morally indefensible to teach to young falsehood, for they have no means of checking them. The teachers must above all try to create in his pupils tolerance, because that is necessary for the survival of democracy. Tolerance enables us to understand those who are different from us, in order that the teacher may discharge his functions adequately. An atmosphere should be created in which he can feel himself to be an individual directed by his inner creative impulses, just like the artist and creative writer. He must not be fettered and dominated by some external authority. Thus, Russell gives a much needed caution to teachers to discharge their functions vigilantly and pleads with the rulers to realize the special nature of the teacher's job and grant them greater independence and self determination. To pen off, Russell rightly points out that although theoretically the role of a teacher is still believed to be as honorable as it was in the past, in practice there have been important changes. A quantitative change has taken place because of the fact that education is now received by a majority of the citizens instead of the minority as it was the case in the past. Secondly, in past the teacher should do his work without interference either by the mob or by the government, whereas nowadays it is the ignorant bureaucrats who decide what the teacher must teach. Thirdly, in antiquity and In Renaissance age, teachers had comparatively greater freedom, whereas the teacher of today is not expected to teach what he believes to be true. And as Russell himself had to face a lot of hostility in the discharge of his functions as a teacher, therefore knows that without freedom of speech, thinking, and working, a teacher could not be a guardian of civilization.